So you have the more detailed lecture in your LMS. I hope again all of you have reached out to the MedGrad team to give you the access in case you have not managed to access it. So there is a lecture covering different aspects of prematurity. So the first point is about delayed cord clamping. So nowadays the NRP, both the 8th edition and the 9th edition, focuses on delayed cord clamping. And the reason it's very important in a premature baby is because their blood volume, suppose you say premature baby has 100 ml per kilo blood volume, 20 to 30 ml per kilo is going to come from this delayed cord clamping. And it's very important that we get a parental, we don't need consent for it, but you have a plan documented. There are two issues. One is the parent preference for the stem cells. So we shouldn't allow the stem cell collection to interfere with the delayed cord clamping. So it's a simple argument that if the delayed cord clamping is done, it's benefiting the baby immediately. While stem cell collection, I'm not against stem cells, but you should say that stem cell should be done after the delayed cord clamping is completed. And one point about the premature babies and delayed cord clamping that you should discuss with your obstetric team is that the obstetricians are worried because the babies are not breathing. They think baby is asphyxiated. But a premature baby has poor tone, and when they come out, they may not breathe effectively. That's very normal. So educate them to feel the cord pulsation as the baby comes out. If the heart rate is more than 100 on the cord pulsation, even if the baby is not vigorous, please wait for the delayed cord clamping. Don't rush to clamp the cord and send the baby to the resuscitator. Of course, more and more of us will start doing the intact cord resuscitation. We need the separate vent first or similar trolleys. In some European countries and in US, different companies are marketing these trolleys where you bring it to the mother's bedside, the delivery table, both with the normal delivery and with the C-section. That is connected to oxygen. It's connected to the manometer and your suction device, and you start resuscitation right there. So the heater is also connected. So I can share some slides for that. But that is the future. I mean, in the near future, we will start going for that. That's a physiologic way of delayed cord clamping. In all cases, we should be aim for 1 minute of delayed cord clamping. And the premature baby is much sicker. There is a higher chance of hemodynamic compromise in the premature babies. So missing out on delayed cord clamping in a premature baby is not good at all. So in most situations, there is no contraindication. In dichorionic twins, there is no contraindication to delayed cord clamping. I told you about IUGR not being an absolute contraindication. In the very severe cases, maybe you can think twice about it. But in the other premature babies, even if it is babies calm at birth, you feel the cord pulsation, educate the obstetrician to wait. The labor room temperature should be adjusted so there is no increased risk of the baby's temperature dropping. So we expect to keep 24 to 25 degrees for a premature baby. Again, a team buy-in is important for that. So do all of you practice delayed cord clamping? Do you educate your obstetric team to wait more? Any comments on that?
Yeah, sir. Nowadays, delayed
Yes,
cord
sir, we are using.
happening. Only if the baby's condition is not that good or baby require active resuscitation, we do that. Otherwise, delayed cord clamping we are practicing.
Even in the premature babies. The premature babies need it more. Okay, the risk of IVH is lower in premature babies because they are more hemodynamically unstable. And this extra blood volume brings with it not only the stability related to higher hemoglobin, the need for transfusion reduces, and the HbF is better at oxygen carrying, as you know. And you might have come across recent studies where people are looking at harvesting the stem cells and using the HbF, not stem cells, the placental blood, and using the HbF based transfusion for the. So that's a new concept that's coming up. Again, it's experimental, but that's the extent people are going. But delayed cord clamping, you're getting that directly. The other important point is the immune factors that comes through the cord blood, because the mother that transfers antibodies, and that is in the cord blood. And when that blood comes at 20 to 30 ml per kilo of IVIG rich blood is going to come to the baby. So you have stem cells, you have immunoglobulin, and you have the hemodynamic stability and better hemoglobin, reduced need for transfusion. So multiple reasons why delayed cord clamping.
Delayed cord clamping. Sir, we are practicing.
Thank you.
Sir, sometimes for term babies,
we are noticing the obstruction during milking of the cord, and many babies developing, polycythemia. This is for term babies. Sometimes we are getting that.
So you know that the NRP guidelines have updated for milking of the cord, intact cord milking. So cord milking before the cord is clamped. So it has been shown to be equally effective as delayed cord clamping in terms of hemoglobin increase, but we prefer the delayed cord clamping because of the other benefits and relative safety, because in milking you're giving a sudden surge of blood volume to the baby.
Okay.
The guideline now says the NRP 35 weeks and above, where you're not able to do cord clamping because the baby is in a poor condition, you can quickly milk the cord and then clamp and send to the mother resuscitator. In the 28 to 35 weeks, it's borderline. So the evidence is not clear cut. So you may consider doing it if you're not able to do delayed cord clamping. And in the 28 weeks and below, we don't prefer that because this sudden surge when you milk it can increase the risk of IVH. So we want to avoid that happening. So below 28 weeks, no cord milking. 28 to 34 weeks, it's possible to consider. 35 weeks and above, you strongly consider, because if you can't do delayed cord clamping but you do cord milking, you still get the other benefits. Again, the polycythemia part, the polycythemia may lead to a slightly increased jaundice, but no hemodynamic disturbances because there is associated extra blood volume. If you look at the studies which look at polycythemia, the viscosity is what affects the babies, not the high hematocrit. So when the blood becomes actually thick, the flow of blood through the different organs like the gut and the brain may slow down. So you have a higher chance of hypoglycemia or poor feeding and gut injury. But when it comes with the extra blood volume, the viscosity doesn't go up, even though the hematocrit is high. So in delayed cord clamping and in cord milking, both are coming with extra blood volume. So you don't face the problem related. So the hemoglobin may be higher, but monitoring these babies like you routinely do with the sugar and jaundice monitoring is adequate. You don't need to worry about that extra hemoglobin.